if it's okay, one thing I thought kind of might start with, given all the sort of pandemic fatigue that's everyone's having, the type of therapy that I end up doing a lot of is known as acceptance and commitment therapy. And one of the things that type of therapy does quite a bit of is different exercises and different metaphors and kind of stories and things like that in order to help kind of clarify particular points.
Okay.
And so what I'd like to do to just start today's session, since part of the theme that we're working with is really around like the marathon of pandemic stress and how many people are just kind of a bit burnt out from coping with all the extra stressors that are here.
Yep.
I thought we might start with just a visualization exercise in order to kind of settle people into the session.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So this exercise is known as the future compassionate self visualization. And so if you're sitting at home, I'll invite you to do this as well. What I'll have you do is just kind of close your eyes and go inside for a sec. And I'd like you to begin allowing your mind to paint a picture of your future compassionate self. So one way to do this is to start to take stock of the journey so far. And so that might involve somewhat reflecting on the journey of your life and the ways that you have grown or matured over that lifetime. Maybe when comparing yourself to previous versions of yourself, you might notice that you're more compassionate, better able to take perspectives, better able to show up in important relationships. And we want to just project that tendency forward in time and start to imagine what it could be like to continue that curve of growth. And so just allowing your mind to kind of pick a time in the future which feels like your future compassionate self. It could be a year from now, could be 5 years from now, 10 years, 20. Just find the kind of right place to work with. And just notice how your mind can start to paint in some of those details. You might notice what this future compassionate self, what their body looks like, or maybe what they're wearing. But maybe more importantly, what sort of facial expressions. And even more importantly, it's what sort of qualities of mind they have. So just noticing how your mind paints those details. So hopefully this is a more compassionate being, meaning that they're sensitive to the suffering of yourself and others, and they have a desire to relieve that suffering. But maybe there's more other kind of associations with that. So maybe this being is more capable of taking perspectives. Maybe they're more courageous or steadfast. Maybe they're calmer. Maybe they're more lighthearted or playful. So just noticing kind of what qualities of mind you want to grow. And then what I'd like you to do is, from your current self, from the year 2021, I want you to draw to mind some problem that you might have been faced with, some difficulty or frustration. And I'd like you to offer it to this compassionate being. I'd like you to request their perspective or their take. What sort of guidance can they offer you? And if you're at home and you need a longer dialogue, you can go ahead and pause the video. I'm just going to wait for a minute before I move on. Okay. And if this feels skillful, I might invite you in order to write down whatever advice they may have given you. And then we'll start to bring this this exercise to a close. First of all, we just want to thank this part of the mind. There's a natural feature of mind to have compassion. So we want to thank that part of the mind for being there, and then just ask it to kind of fade back into the background, knowing that we can draw up this part at any point that we want. And then we'll just tune the attention back to more of the present moment. You can tune the attention back to the sounds that are going on in your room or the sounds of my voice. And eventually you can turn the attention back to the visual impressions of closed eyes and eventually the visual impressions of eyes wide open. Thank you so much.
That was great.
Cool. Yeah.
Interesting to use the imagination to project a self that is more calm, steadfast, and we're easily able to interface with what's hard right now.
Mhm.
And it's fun how that kind of just feels like a slight mental awakening to, oh, right, yeah, that could be right now.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a curious thing in which one of the joys of doing compassion work with people is that those are completely natural, inborn biological structures in our brain. Often we know how to do a lot of this stuff already inherently. It's just that very often we're too threatened, we're too overwhelmed to kind of have access to that.
Yeah.
So some of the behavioral model is basically like building up skill sets so that people can do that sort of stuff more of the time. And that's what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of it. But a lot of this stuff from that perspective kind of looks like common sense because it's stuff you often know how to do.
Yeah. Once you're calmed down enough to be able to see it, which is my understanding of the brain science, when you're not stressed, scared, fearful, when you've got more blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. Like your brain isn't in, oh gosh, we have to fight or we have to freeze. It's able to access all of its resources or more of its resources.
You got it.